everyone, welcome to the top 10 list and welcome to my top 10 worst movies of the decade so far. Yes, I've had a recommendation to do this for almost a year now. When I did my top 10 favorite movies of each decade leading up to my favorite movies of all time, everyone said do an opposite list, do a worst movies of each decade leading to your least favorite movies of all time. Well, I just skipped all that and I literally just did my top 10 worst movies of all time list, but people still want to know my opinions of what the worst movies of each decade are, so I thought I'd just give it to you guys. I'm going to do my top 10 worst movies of each decade leading into the 80s. I'm not going to do anything past the 80s. I'm just going to do 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. That's about it. Because when it comes to classic movies, I only watch the good ones. I haven't watched a lot of really shitty classic movies. I've seen a few, but I haven't seen a lot to make a top 10 list. But I've seen some really stinkers in the 90s, 80s, 2000s, 2010s. So yeah, I'll be making worst movies of each of those decades. So yeah. Look forward to all of those, but I'm going to be starting off with the top 10 worst movies of this decade, 2010 to 2017. So yeah, let's get to it. Let's get to these stinkers, and here's my top 10 worst movies of the decade so far. And before top 10 list, you gotta have your honorable mentions, or in this case, dishonorable mentions. And those movies are the movie R.I.P.D., Grown Ups, Grown Ups 2, I, Frankenstein, Scary Movie 5, A Haunted House, and Just Go With It. Yes, a lot of Adam Sandler movies in there. But yeah, just all shitty movies, just gonna make the top 10 list. But my top 10 was my number 10. My number 10 is actually a movie I just reviewed not that long ago, and that is 50 Shades Darker. 50 Shades of Grey is a piece of shit. It is a god-awful piece of shit. This movie is worse in every sense of the way. 50 Shades Freed, if they even make it, I don't even know how bad that movie can be. This movie set the bar high for shit for 50 Shades. This movie's awful. Everything in this movie is awful. This is hands down the worst movie of 2017. I don't know if there can be a movie that could beat this movie. This movie is so bad. The writing, the direction, the story, everything is awful. Nothing is done right. Nothing in this movie is done right. Maybe a shot here and there is okay, but the soundtrack doesn't add up. There's no tone, there's no atmosphere, there's nothing compelling, there's no depth to these characters, there's nothing sexy or interesting about this movie. This movie is just awful. It's not even hilariously bad, it's just bad. Coming number 9 is Ouija, or Ouija. Yes, thank God for Origin of Evil, even though Origin of Evil I had a lot of issues with, especially with its third act, but I actually still enjoyed Ouija 2, Origin of Evil. I actually did enjoy the movie, and it was an enjoyable horror film. The first one was not. This movie is so generic with terrible CGI, the most by-the-books, uninteresting horror movie characters. Nothing about this movie worked. I hated it. It's not scary. It's not interesting. You just are scratching your face waiting for this movie to end. Nothing interesting happens. The jump scares are beyond painful. These characters are so one-dimensional, so cliched. It's just wow, did a 10-year-old write the fucking script for this movie? This is hands down one of the worst horror movies of this decade, and one of the worst movies, period, of this decade. Coming number 8 is Bucky Larson, Born to Be a Star. Yep, this movie exists. Fuck this fucking movie! Okay, anyways, yeah, sorry. I think a tumor was exploding in my head. Anyways, this movie's awful. Nick Swartzen's in this movie. He plays this guy. He wants to be in porn, but he has a small penis. And yeah, he likes porn. He wants to be in porn. Did I mention it's written by Adam Sandler and it's Happy Madison? Yeah, that's right. Now you guys know why this movie sucks and why it's a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie's so freaking awful. It's so stupid and painful to sit through. It's only 80 minutes long, but it feels like 150. This movie is a piece of ass shit turd scumbag fucking Adam Sandler. This movie's horribly written. The characters are beyond annoying. Yeah, you got Christina Ricci in this movie. Why? I have no idea. This movie isn't funny. This movie, I'm not gonna say sexy. It's not sexy. The thing about this movie is sexy. This movie is ridiculous and dumb and stupid. You feel stupid when you watch this movie. It's just awful, and I cannot see anyone liking this movie. If you like it, that's fine, but seriously, this movie's awful. Coming number 7 is The Legend of Hercules. This movie stars Kellen Lutz. Yeah, that one guy from Twilight. This actually came out in 2014 with another Hercules movie with Dwayne Johnson, which is actually a better movie. Still not a good movie, but a better movie than this. This movie felt like a TV movie. It felt like this was like a $10,000 budget film. The effects are beyond laughable. The acting is beyond over the top, especially the villain in this movie. We must get Hercules! We must destroy him because I'm the king! That is the acting in this movie. They're the mustache twirling villains. I must destroy him! And yeah, this movie is awful. The action, the visuals, this movie looks so cheap, so ugly, so fake. The shaky cam, the cuts, the edits, everything in this movie is embarrassing to watch and embarrassing just to even think about, because you actually thought, hey, someone actually thought this movie looked good. Someone actually wanted to make this movie. Rennie Harlin directed this movie, who did Cliffhanger and Die Hard 2. Very stupid action movies, but fun action movies. This is just stupid. Number 6 is Movie 43. Why does this movie keep showing up in top 10 lists? I don't even want to talk about this movie anymore. I've talked about this movie too much. Too many times I've talked about this movie. It's a bunch of short skits starring a bunch of great actors who aren't funny. This movie is so dumb. It's... I don't even want to talk about this movie. Next movie. Coming number 5 is Point Break. Yes, Point Break was my least favorite movie of 2015 because I really hate this movie. I genuinely hated this movie. This did not feel like Point Break. Point Break is a silly, cheesy 90s action movie that's fun to watch. This movie isn't fun. This movie is like supposed to be dark and serious. The movie doesn't even feel like a movie. It feels like a sports documentary. Like it feels like a MMFX or whatever. I'm not a big sports person. It feels like a sports video because it's basically people surfing and snowboarding and jumping off buildings and hang gliding. That's basically what this movie is. There's not even much of a story. There's not even much bank robbing scenes. And the movie Point Break is about bank robbing. It's about the ex-presidents. And it's about Johnny Utah joining these surfers and become part of their team and stuff. But then he has to take them down because he is an FBI agent. They don't even go into details with this in this movie. This movie doesn't even follow the source material properly. It's just a bland, wooden, dark movie, and it just doesn't work. There's no ounce of fun or creativity in this movie. It's just a boring dribble of a film, and I just absolutely hated it. Coming number 4 is a tie between two of the worst animated films I've ever seen in my entire life. That's Food Fight and Norm of the North. Ugly animation, ugly characters, horrible storyline. No kids should watch it, no adults should watch it. These are just awful. I've done a whole review of Norm of the North, so everyone knows my hatred for Norm of the North. Food Fight, just as worse. Just as worse. It tries to reference Casablanca. I don't know why. It tries to be Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but with food products instead of like cartoon characters. It is the most ugly, hideous animated film I've ever seen. Charlie Sheen, Wayne Brody, all of them. I don't know why they did this movie. Norm of the North is just worse. It's a fucking Rob Schneider polar bear twerking. Just fucking shoot me now. Like, both these movies are awful. No parent should show their kids these movies. Unless you want to punish them. Then that's a pretty good punishment. But yeah, worst anime films I've ever seen. Coming number 3 is ATM. Yes, I know a lot of people haven't seen this movie. This is a Canadian horror film. Good job, Canada. We made one of the worst horror movies ever made. ATM. This movie's so fucking stupid. This movie is about these people that go to this ATM, and it's like this little ATM booth, and then there's like a killer outside waiting to kill them. Why don't they run away? I don't know. This movie is so ridiculous, and the fucking flaws in this movie are just... The movie's kind of hilariously bad, because the movie even ends with the killer putting a hose in the booth and flooding them. How does he do that? This movie makes no sense. Nothing about this movie makes a lick of sense. Why is there a killer trying to kill these people for no reason? How is he putting a hose in a booth? Why isn't the glass just leaking it out? Why aren't these people running away? Look, these are probably the dumbest characters I've ever seen in a horror movie. It's probably the dumbest premise I've seen in a horror movie. And it's just one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen. Hands down, third worst movie of this decade. Hands down. Coming number 2 is Jack and Jill. Yes. Yeah, you're all probably wondering, where's the Adam Sandler movie? Bucky Larson can't be the only one. Where's the Adam Sandler movie? Here it is. Number 2, baby. Jack and Jill. I hate this movie. Jack and Jill is the epiphany of someone going mad. Like if you watch this movie, you will seriously go crazy because how ridiculous and awful this movie is. You're like, oh my god, is this real? Is this real? It's awful. Jack and Jill, just terrible. Adam Sandler plays the role of Jack and Jill, a boy and a twin sister. Yeah, Adam Sandler playing a fat woman. Yeah, that's a good idea. He even sounds ridiculous. You just want to play Twister with the sister. Oh, boo boo, boo boo boo. That's my Adam Sandler. Oh, boo, we call this shit boo 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 boo. I can't stand Adam Sandler. I think he's an anus of comedy. Like, he just doesn't know comedy. He really doesn't. Dennis Dugan, he stopped being funny a long time ago. Happy Gilmore's his only good movie. Same with like Adam Sandler. Well, Happy Gilmore, Wedding Singer, Reign Over Me. But anyways, Jack and Jill's awful. Yes, it even drags Al Pacino down. Why? Just why? This is one of the worst comedies I've ever seen in my entire life. It's awful. And my number 1 worst movie of this decade so far is, you all know what it is. It's my it's my least favorite movie of all time. It's Last Airbender, obviously. It's Last fucking Airbender, directed by fucking M. Night fucking Shyamalan fucking movie. He made up for it. He really did. Like, what he did with The Visit and now this year's Split. Shyamalan, I agree. Shyamalan is back. He's getting in the groove of things. I'm happy. I'm not happy still that he made this movie. I hate this movie. I love so much Avatar: The Last Airbender. I love it. It's my favorite cartoon, one of my favorite shows of all time. What this movie did to that show was just like, oh, look at that. Shyamalan's like, hey, I love Avatar. Oh, apparently I don't, because I just want to shit on the whole story and all the characters and not get a single thing right and put no creativity or passion or effort or even humor in this movie. Nothing in this movie works. The performances are all bland. The characters' names aren't right. The story isn't right. He left out so many plot points. He left out so many characters. And the fact that he thought he could get a sequel afterwards is laughable. This movie sucks. The action, the characters, the visuals, the story. It's nothing like the greatness of the cartoon. I hate this movie. It's my least favorite movie of all time. Hands down, the worst movie of this decade so far. I don't think a single movie can ever beat it, in my opinion. So yeah, that was my top 10 worst movies of this decade so far, 2010 to 2017. Hope you all enjoyed it. So yeah, in the comment section below, please tell me, what is your top 10 worst movies of this decade so far? Remember, 2010 to 2017. Yeah, so yeah, give me your top 10 worst movies of this decade. Comment below. Let me know. And as always, if you liked this video, please like, subscribe to this channel, and join the dark side.